Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event. My name is Megan Kennedy, and I am the Director of Programs at the Global Philanthropy Forum. Today, we have a very exciting conversation of which leads up to our annual conference, which will be happening this year on November 1st and 2nd here in San Francisco with this theme of shifting power collective action. So we're very excited to have host some of these online conversations in the lead up to our event. And today's event is no exception in a great conversation. I would like to introduce today's moderator, Rufaro Kangai, who will be leading the discussion and is coming to us from Global Fund for Women. And with that, I will turn it over. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you all for joining this discussion. Glad you're all here. So as we have seen this past year, abortion access is a significant challenge to the US. Unfortunately, the efforts of our feminist foremothers who fought to legalize abortion 50 years ago has experienced a significant rollback when the US Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade this June 2022. The US has joined a handful of other countries that have rolled back abortion rights in the past 3 decades, including Russia and Iran. Also, as we have noticed through the Democracy Index, the US has been rated as a flawed democracy. And we've seen rollbacks on racial justice and LGBTQ rights as a nation. But during the same period, there is hope. Nearly 60 countries liberalized their abortion laws. Some of these countries include Benin, Colombia, and Mexico. My name is Rufaro Kangai, the Director of Individual Major Gifts at the Global Fund for Women. For the past 20 years, I've either participated in movements or supported movements to advance reproductive justice globally. I'm thrilled that my colleague Dawn Laguens from Planned Parenthood will be joining us. Dawn is the Executive Vice President and Chief Global Strategy and Innovation Officer of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and she is also serving as the Interim Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Global. Dawn, we are so pleased to have you. And starting off, the question that is on our mind is the overturning of Roe versus Wade is being talked about as one of the most shocking and damaging Supreme Court decisions in decades. What led us to this point?
Well, thank you, Rufaro. And I just need to say, well, hello to our wonderful audience. And I did want to say, I'm such a fangirl of the Global Fund for Women. I feel like I should be interviewing you, who are such a remarkable leader, and I know have run many of the different aspects of Global Fund. So thank you for doing this and giving us the chance to say hi. I'm actually coming to you from the beautiful but very flawed state of Texas in the United States, one of the states that has been most vicious and unforgiving in going after abortion access here in the United States. And it really has, what has led us here is a combination, one of, since the minute that Roe v. Wade was decided, and I just like to point out that even from the time Roe was the law of the land, so to speak, in the United States, it was not equally accessible to all people. From the very get-go, right? We know about the Hyde Amendment and so many rules and regulations and cost and just all of the things that made it inaccessible to many people. So it wasn't, ever perfect world here in the US, but it was a lot better when we had Roe, in as the law, and we could at least be fighting for it in the courts. So a few things have led us here. One is that from day one, again, it was flawed, but they went after it, and they have not relented in 50 years, right? They have been single-minded about reversing Roe and undermining it at every corner. They have built up a state-level attack mechanism, and in state legislatures in about half the states in the United States are really negative toward abortion, and about that many are in play. Now, the number of states that have different rules and bans on abortion is changing daily and weekly, as you know, due to court cases that we and others are fighting to try and preserve as much access as possible. So if you do want to know, in our audience, you can go to plannedparenthood.org and you'll have the very latest day-to-day on what are the rules in each state. But currently, about 1 in 3 women and people who can get pregnant are not able to access abortion services or have it highly curtailed. The other thing, of course, was the capture over many years and nefarious business by the Senate and the president to appoint really right-wing judges and justices, and to stack the courts in ways that were intended to lead to this outcome.
Thank you so much for that insight. Following up on that question, how has this dramatic reversal affected abortion rights movement in the US and the fight to achieve reproductive justice around the world?
Yes, well, of course, it's a massive setback, especially for the individuals who are impacted. I know you and our audience are seeing and hearing the stories of people who are having to travel 500 and 600 miles, whose pregnancies that they are trying to keep are being impacted when they are being denied protective care that they could get, because it has so many ramifications in our health system, right? Abortion is healthcare. And when you politicize the healthcare system, you politicize all aspects. We're hearing about colleges that are hesitating to prescribe certain forms of birth control. We're hearing about maternal health situations because people can't get the care that they need and deserve in certain states, or I just talked to a friend who is having difficulty with her pregnancy. She was here for a conference in Texas, and she called her OBGYN. They said, I hate to say this, don't go to the hospital there because you might need care you can't get. Get on a plane and get out of there. But that could have gone badly, right? We know that. We know LGBTQ community is under attack in the US as well, and this has ramifications that are tied there. So it's having significant impacts. Now, on the health side, on the movement side, I think it's woken up a sleeping giant that, unfortunately, I think there were many people who were out there saying, this really could happen. This really is going to happen. And it just seems so impossible as you were sitting here in the US, I think. And part of that is just, for a long time, we've seen them coming after it, but Roe had held. And now that that is gone, people are really coming out and saying that in this coming election, they're going to vote. It's showing up in polling in a way that it never has before in the US, just really among the top things. So, we'll see how those pieces play out. But I do think people understand it's on them. It's on all of us together to band together. The other thing I would just say about the impacts is we know that when things happen in the US, they can have very bad impacts around the world. We've seen that with the Helms Amendment, of course, the global gag rule. We're thankful that President Biden rolled that back early in his term in office, but there's so many more things that still have a negative impact. And when rights roll back here, we know it emboldens the opposition everywhere, because that opposition is connected and communicating. And so we can't think that this stops at any border. When we go backwards, it impacts us all.
Thank you so much, Dawn. It's like you read my mind. That was the next question I was going to ask you about. How is what's happening here to just raise awareness that truly what happens here impacts what happens around the world. It creates enabling where people feel enabled, other leaders, to restrict access and impact women's rights as a whole. Well, following up on that, in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision, what are some of the most pressing goals of Planned Parenthood Global in terms of resecuring reproductive rights, and how is the organization working to achieve them? I gather you must be really busy during these days.
Yes, and just for our listeners who may not kind of understand they've heard of Planned Parenthood, but maybe not Planned Parenthood Global, and they've heard of the International Planned Parenthood Federation. Just a quick moment of explanation. So Planned Parenthood, which is the United States organization with health centers and health clinics, that's the primary way that we serve, along with advocacy and education in the US. For 50 years Planned Parenthood has had an international commitment through Planned Parenthood Global, where we have not gone around and made little mini Planned Parenthoods all over the place, but where we work with brave partners in Africa and Latin America and around the globe, like with the Global Fund for Women, to make sure that we are putting resources, technical assistance, partnership, communication support, whatever's needed behind this, brave partners and organizations on the ground that are locally led. We say locally led, globally connected, right? And then we are also, Planned Parenthood Federation of America is also a proud member of IPPF, the International Planned Parenthood Federation, which is a network of 154 member associations in countries across the globe who are collaborating and who are sharing best practices and information and supporting each other in this journey. So that's just a little bit of background. And so, kind of in the US, Planned Parenthood is, of course, one of the leading advocacy organizations, in addition to being a care provider. And we're working on both sides to make sure that those people who are impacted by these bans, further impacted than people have already been, are as much as possible able to get care, supporting them with navigation to find their way to places where they can legally secure services, to make it more affordable, working with the abortion funds that are doing such amazing work in supporting people, working with independent providers who are also shouldering so much of the load. I can say our own affiliates, our own health centers in states that are still able to provide care are just seeing an overwhelming number of patients coming from other states. And as I say, driving and flying and getting there by bus, train, car, you name it. It's a lot on people who already, we know the people who are being most impacted are those who are already most impacted by the discrimination, racism, inequality in our system here. So we are just, again, fighting to mobilize as many people as we can, fighting to get as much information to people as we possibly can, and fighting to provide care and resources to as many people as we can. Planned Parenthood Global, the great news, as you have said, is there are so many advances, and as Megan said at the beginning, happening around the globe that are honestly keeping us strong when we look and see what's possible. We know folks around the globe have also had to live through some tough times, and they are showing us how you do that, how you, in low resource and sometimes over-regulated environments, provide services, how you change a constitution. I was just talking, in April, our partners and friends in Kenya, their high court in Malindi ruled, right, that abortion-related arrests and prosecutions are illegal and they should be taken out of the penal code. And you and I both know all of those freedom fighters in Kenya would be the first to tell you that amending a constitution isn't easy, but you can do it. And so we are taking a lot of inspiration. We're looking at the accompaniment model in Mexico, on the healthcare side. What can we learn and borrow and listen for from our colleagues? So that's kind of where we are. Ecuador, that's another place I'm so inspired by. We've been involved in the Niñas No Madres, Girls Not Mothers campaign that helped in a very a place of strong cultural resistance, really helped to change the conversation. And now their constitutional court has broadened legal abortion to include cases of rape. And I can tell you that those bold advocates are not going to stop there. They're going to keep going until everyone has full access. So just a couple of what you and I both know are amazing stories of inspiration that we need at this moment. I look at the Marea Verde movement. We need, our US version that swept Latin America and made so much change and keeps going. And that's what we are looking to.
No, thank you for sharing how you're partnering and learning from other advocates around the globe. So what can you say to other advocates based in the US? How can they get closer to achieving their goals by learning from peers abroad who are battling to gain their own reproductive rights and freedom?
Well, we know that there are many, of course, great organizations in the United States who have been wonderful partners and been looking around the globe, but maybe the US thought they were unique or special, or we thought we were unique or special in some ways. And not everyone has paid as close enough attention to what's going on. So one, you can follow things like the Global Philanthropy Forum, you can follow Global Fund for Women, you can follow Planned Parenthood Global, you can follow the organizations on the ground that we all work with, so that you in your Twitter feed and Instagram and Facebook and all of social media are getting all of the information and the just really amazing work, the great cultural work too, right? That is happening, the use of art, I think, and poetry and song, and so much of the cultural change that we need here, and to bring a whole new generation of people into the movement. I think that's one thing that folks can do. They can look for opportunities to partner, right? We're having much more opportunities between our affiliates and health centers in the US and our program partners and our staff that are from and located in both Africa and Latin America, so that we can have in-person and virtual still. Of course, I wish we were together by a charming fire somewhere, a real fireside chat. We'll do that in the future. But we're trying to do more of that. And I think others can team up and have sister organizations that they support and put young people together, even in just dialogue. So lots of opportunities. And then I would say on the philanthropy front, that was a tough one, which I know many of the people joining us today are part of the fund and related, is that so much of what's needed is this partnership-based approach. And I'm really proud. And again, I'm the interim executive director. We're about to announce our search. I'll just say that right here. Use this as advertising that we're going to start our search for the permanent executive director. Very excited about that. So look for that. But, for a long time, Planned Parenthood Global has had this partner forward way of thinking, and we continue to improve our ways. We're going through right now, every piece of paper, everything we ask our partners to do as part of our relationship. Is it needed? Is it burdensome? What is trust-based philanthropy? And I think there's a lot we need to do better, both PP Global, but all of the sector need to look at this and say, where have racist or neocolonialist policies and practices, historic, some of them, right, that have crept in and been part of the way we interact. And we just need to go rooting them out, one by one by one, until we achieve what our real dream of true partnership is. But I think that that's something, as you reach out or as you do funding, to really keep in mind.
Well, that's definitely music to my ears for someone who has roots in the global South. And that's something that we've been yearning for, that those type of partnerships that are trust-based and that have a self-determination approach. So thank you so much for sharing that. You are all doing a lot as Planned Parenthood to address the situation. And I would like to know specifically, we would like to know specifically, in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision, what are some of the most pressing goals for Planned Parenthood Global in terms of resecuring reproductive rights, and how is your organization working to achieve them?
Yes. Well, again, Planned Parenthood Global, a little bit more focused on supporting our partners who are making such good progress as we've discussed, and then leaving the, putting the burden of the US work, again, supported by the inspiration and the learnings from our global partners. Planned Parenthood is really driving a legal strategy, again, along with our friends from the Center for Reproductive Rights and the ACLU and others, and forgive me for not naming everybody, but I know those guys are also really out front, along with Planned Parenthood's litigation and law team. So I think there's that legal strategy, again, the health strategy, and we need folks. It's going to be a tough fight. It's not going to be a fast fight. We're going to win some things, but some things are not going to get better for a while. And we need all supporters to stick with these, the whole ecosystem of reproductive rights and justice groups, as we try to support patients, and as we try to, in state by state by state, change laws that are going to be devastating, are already devastating for folks. And as we change culture, so we need to, we're certainly trying to bring every cultural leader, and a lot of interesting for an old person like me. I do have triplet daughters, so they keep me a little bit fresh, and that's why I always said I had to go to work for Planned Parenthood, right? Is that I needed to know all that education stuff. Is that so many of the influencers today, right? We all know, oh, Beyonce, right? I mean,
Yes.
she's amazing, or Megan Thee Stallion, who did amazing shout out the other day, just fantastic. But a lot of people are on TikTok or Instagram or all of these platforms, and they have amazing audiences of people. Not just, and what I love about their audiences are they aren't just in the US, they're around the globe, and they can send a message about the need to be involved, the need to not wait for instructions too, right? You are smart, you are creative, you have friends, you have a little pod, you can do stuff to change the world and to restore these rights for everyone. And we are, as the saying goes, not free till everyone's free. And that is not just in the US, that's globally, and that's how we have to think. So we're trying to fight in the US, but bring a global mindset to what we're doing.
That's great. And that leads me to the final question around movements, which you just mentioned. You're really building a strong movement around this cause, which is inspiring. Why are global connected social movements around reproductive rights important? How can advocates be of most help in supporting efforts to achieve the short and long-term goals you've discussed, such as funding, rallying, partnering, investing?
One of the things I'm most excited about, and I won't be actually at the forum's in-person meeting because I'm on my way finally, after years of COVID, to be in person with our colleagues and partners in Africa. And I'm so excited about that. And so I would say, as people can safely, obviously it takes resources and we have to be mindful of that. But I think being together, meeting, sharing thoughts and ideas. You know, I know we have Women Deliver in Rwanda next year. We have, ICFP coming up in, I think it's Thailand. Sorry, but if I've misspoken on that one, but we have all of a sudden some real exciting opportunities to be together, to share best practices, to understand that we're connected, to actually connect in the ways we used to. We've also got this great new built out infrastructure of being able to connect and maintain our relationships virtually. So I think that's first, is we got to start rebuilding those relationships that maybe have taken a hit during that time. So that's one thing. Another thing is we need to think even more broadly than sexual and reproductive health rights and justice, right? If you care about education, the economy, the environment, we are all deeply connected. And the foundation of progress in most of those arenas, every study, every UN proclamation, everything says, is making sure that women and girls and marginalized people have autonomy and agency and opportunity. And that's what sexual and reproductive health and rights are fundamentally about. So I think that so many people we need to be inviting into our movement and explaining why the work around sexual and reproductive health and rights is so critical, that other movements need to get in here with us a bit stronger and stand with us if they want to make progress as well. So those are a few things. And of course, we want people, I know you guys are always happy and willing to take some donations that then you, like us, are very oriented to passing through to partners and supporting them in their work. And so you always want to say, yes, give more. It's going to take more for us to weather this storm in the US and to be successful across the globe.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now we have opened it up for questions. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. I'm learning so much from Dawn. I feel very privileged to be here and having this discussion, and want to give you all the opportunity to ask anything, any questions that you may have. Okay, so one question we have is post Roe versus Wade, do you have hope going forward for the US to be able to secure and uplift reproductive rights once again? What's your outlook, and how do global movements tie into that?
Well, I think hope is essential. So is hard work, right? So are resources, all of those things. We're, as we discussed very briefly, it's not going to be quick. It's going to be a state-by-state fight. It's going to be culture change. In the meantime, it's going to be supporting folks. It's going to be learning from our friends and allies and partners across the globe. One thing we didn't really talk deeply about, Rufaro, is the need to also combat our opposition, our shared opposition, because I can tell you that wherever I go, whomever I speak with about this, the same people pop up over and over and over again, and they are selling a form of inequality and inequity, and in some cases hatred against women, against gender equity, against LGBTQ people, against people of color. So we have got to have a stronger mindset about how to combat them and to expose them for what they are doing, and to share, again, best practices that we are seeing out there. Another area we've got to come together on, and we're all being manipulated. I use it like everybody else, but the big tech companies have a lot to do with what people have access to what kind of ideas people are exposed to misinformation, to disinformation. And we need to demand more from them in terms of actually caring about what's happening to people in this country and around the world who their technology is being abused, and they are letting it happen when they could take stronger steps. We've recently seen a couple of tech companies do that. We want more.
Thank you for that. I am so glad you talked about the opposition, because we do have a strong opposition in this movement, and also the role that technology can play in helping us have the correct messaging around these issues. There's another question that came about how effective will U.S. state propositions be for a federal reproductive right, such as CA's constitutional right to reproductive freedom legislative constitutional announcement?
I think we have to try everything. That's what I would say, right? And we just saw that ballot measure in Kansas. Many people said can't happen. Oh, it's Kansas, it's conservative. We saw a tremendous vote, tremendous turnout, and a tremendous win to protect access for people in Kansas. And I think that was just great. We have some other ballot measures, and we're going to have to go again state by state. But the way that power is distributed in the United States and means that some of these state legislatures, through gerrymandering and through the fact that they have been the way that the courts are supporting certain things and making certain things very difficult, it's going to be a long while before I think we pass a constitutional amendment. But that does not mean we shouldn't try. And we don't know where the breakthrough will happen. And we also know that as people hear more stories of what's happening to real people, we can see unexpected shifts. We see how a story all of a sudden captures the imagination, right? Again, going back to the stories told in Ecuador, the Supreme Court cases in Latin America and that are happening, the Mexican Supreme Court, there are these things that kind of get in the consciousness of a country and a people and can have unexpected impact. So, we don't always know where the change will come. So it's incumbent on us to have a lot of things going out, a lot of efforts that we're trying, so that we are giving ourselves the very best chance to change things in a positive direction the fastest that we can.
Thank you for that. Another question that just came is, how do your organization support broader democratic reform and promote civic engagement, which may be key to democratically securing human rights? And is large organizational lobbying spending across the spectrum of ideas part of the issues in enabling laws with widespread public support in the US?
I should probably, I wish I had some of our experts from our Planned Parenthood advocacy team and our action fund here, but I can tell you that we absolutely understand the interconnectedness, again, of issues and also of democracy. We can't do anything on all of these issues that we care about: saving our planet, saving our reproductive health and rights, having an economy that is fair to way more people than it is today. We can't do any of that if democracy is not functioning. And we know, again, that some of the same opposition we were talking about related to sexual health and reproductive rights and justice are the same folks who are leading efforts to undermine democracy here and around the world. And we know the tools of authoritarians are actually to take away rights, to take away reproductive rights, to keep women down, to push a patriarchal viewpoint of the world. So it is a giant web that we have got to untangle. And we are absolutely speaking out, investing, working for changes in our democratic system that will strengthen our democratic system so that we can have a fair shot at actually restoring reproductive rights here. And again, to get rid of a lot of terrible laws and policies that the US has promulgated on the rest of the world, that we have not just to undo those things, but to undo the harms that were caused. It's not just enough to say we're going to get rid of some bad laws. Those things have reverberating impacts for many, many years and decades. And so that's another level of work that we need to do.
Thank you for that. And I'll just add, as far as Global Fund for Women, on the global context, our approach is supporting collective action that's led by women. We have a movement-led approach that we've been piloting for years and are shifting more to that as our primary approach of supporting movements, whether they are related to civic engagement, democracy, climate action, reproductive justice. An example of one of those movements is we are going to be supporting a movement in East Africa to support the advancement of reproductive justice in East Africa. So we just believe in putting money in the hands of women and supporting them to shift power that will last beyond our generation. So that's our approach on the global level as Global Fund for Women. Now,
Rufaro, I just want to say, I think we've learned so much from you all over the years about that, and everyone in the sector has, that this kind of locally led but globally connected idea. And what we say is back the brave, find those brave people, organizations, communities who are doing work at the leading edge, who are changing what's possible, and get in with them, have their back, give them those resources and a lot of room to make decisions about what is best and what solutions are going to work. And again, I don't think, and maybe you guys, but we're all trying to do it every day more and more perfectly.
Thank you. And I love back the brave. I love that, that phrase. So another question is, do you have any insights on how philanthropy can prioritize? Is it important to support big picture policy and movement building, but securing care for people in restrictive states is also crucial?
Yes, it would be like picking between your children, you love them both, right? Absolutely. We believe in so many of the organizations that are doing such a great job actually providing services. Planned Parenthood Global has really focused its attention on, again, more of a advocacy, more of a movement building kind of strategy, looking for those groups who are changing the context, changing the culture of what's possible so that healthcare providers can do their work without stigma, with the proper funding and support. And I do think that one thing we need to look at, and we have been, as we're trying to make more kind of unrestricted grants and lightly programmatic grants to folks. Also, we're hearing a lot of requests for support around governance and the organizational structure and supports and processes and policies that are going to help these organizations survive and thrive for the long term, and that are going to make sure that when their governments are saying, we want to look at this or that, that they have all of the things in order. So that's something we've been hearing more of and more requests for. So that may be also something that global philanthropy folks want to look at, is not just, oh, we'll help you with this one program, but we want to help you be a strong, powerful, long-lasting, growing, thriving organization.
That is important. That unrestricted funding is important for movements and organizations. Let's see, it can be confusing for voters to understand if our energy and attention should primarily be at the local or federal level. How is Planned Parenthood balancing the focus on local policies and elections and federal elections and policies now? Great question.
Oh. Made me tired just asking me that question. Again, I hate that my answer seems to always be we have to do it all.
Yes.
But that said, we do know that because we don't have Roe and that the court is gone, right? The Supreme Court is not going to be a help. The judiciary generally has a lot of places where we're just not going to have any success. We know that local and state, we need to double down on local and state action and have folks, we see great things happening in some of our states that are have not lost access, in fact, have been expanding access to help people from other states, or building clinics. In New Mexico, the governor there announced that they were going to put state money toward helping build a clinic on the New Mexico-Texas border. In California, they're making funds available. I think Oregon, there's a few places where people are getting involved and saying, what can we do in our state to help our folks coming from other states or in other states? So that's wonderful. And then in states where we've lost access, we obviously need to keep this front and center. We need to help people who are being left behind from accessing care. And we need to have people registering to vote and getting involved in the ways that they can, which are many, so that over time we can make progress in those states.
Thank you. And so our last question is, with the midterms approaching, what can we do to best support the movement for securing reproductive rights for women across the U.S.?
Yeah, again, I think we all are well aware that this election is going to be a meaningful one, right? And that it's an opportunity, in light of what has happened, for people to really let the people in government, the people running for office, know that they're watching and that this issue matters to them. And so there are so many great organizations that are involved in the political process, and so many of them are in the sexual and reproductive health and rights movement, and are on what they call the C4 side, like our Action Fund and others. And so just encourage everyone to make your voice heard, to be sure that you're encouraging other folks to be involved in any way possible, and that it's being watched, right? That's what we all know, is every day there's an article in I say the newspaper like we have the newspaper, but there's an article online, many of them, speaking about how this issue has woken so many people up to participation. And so I hope people are going to run through the tape with that.
Well, thank you all so much for the questions. They were great questions, really led to a productive discussion. And I'm going to hand it over to Dawn to just close us out. What are your closing statements?
Yeah, my closing statements are, we are part of an exciting movement, an exciting and important time. We've been given a responsibility, right? We don't always pick it, but this is the moment we're in, and each and every one of us can play a critical and important part of both backing the brave and being brave. And I guess I'd like to end by shouting out our sisters and brothers in Iran who are putting their lives on the line right now as we speak, about, there's so much brave in the world, and our job is to find it and to lift it and to love it and to learn from it and to live it.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I will hand it back to Megan for any announcements that you might have.
Thank you, Rufaro.
Yeah, just want
Thank
to
you, Dawn.
thank
It was
you.
a pleasure.
Thank you both so much for that very inspiring conversation. And I think you're leaving us with some very strong words to live by: back the brave and be the brave. So thank you all so much for joining us, and hope that you either join us in person or on the live stream for our Global Philanthropy Forum this year on November 1st and 2nd. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks.